I'm always fucking open. Tabarnakis. Gee, we got some Sunday football to react to. Get into it. As always, start off with what did I get wrong?
I'm stupid. You're smart. I was wrong. You were right. You're the best. I'm the worst. You're very good looking. I'm not attractive.
All right. As long as you're willing to admit that.
Hey, Najee fucking Harris is still terrible. That sucked. Burrow and Chase. So I did like a whole article and like I've done multiple segments now on my infamous trade of Josh Allen and Drake London for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And until this week, I had been very right. This is the week where I was very wrong. It could just as easily flip back next week, such as the nature of redraft fantasy football. But hey, this is why I always love to hedge my bets against my own takes. I'm probably gonna win, by the grace of God, as long as I don't get knocked out of the top 50 from tonight's game. I should win $450. If not, even if I get knocked down, I'll probably still win 179. So it's not the worst. But I cracked top 50 in the weekly winners. Partly because of DJ Moore, Justin Fields stack, but also because of Jamar Chase's huge game. I have tons of him in best ball. I have tons of him in dynasty. I have him in a couple other money redraft leagues where I wasn't, trying to trade him away. But those were situations where I didn't have him stacked with Burrow. I just had Chase. So I was very much just holding on to him. But this was like one free league and I just was kind of beleaguered and I just, I was hedging the bet of, if they don't come back as early as I want, and I still won this week. So ultimately it didn't really matter. Ramondre Stevenson, that one, I thought he would bounce back and at least be more involved in the passing game. He's been absent just all around. Zeke is cutting into his work, and they just both look terrible. The whole offense looks bad for the Patriots. I mean, they look bad on both sides of the ball. They got walloped by the Saints. And then on the Sunday Live, I had, I think the biggest thing I said wrong was Alex Madison over George Pickens. Madison got the touchdown to save the day, but ultimately George Pickens had a monster week, and he's really the only fantasy relevant asset left in Pittsburgh. Like, it's George Pickens. He is it. For the I was right segment.
Not the kind of person to say I told her so, but you know what? I told her so. I told her so.
The Kyle Pitts. Who scored more than Kyle Pitts this week? Unfortunately, this is a shorter segment this week, but it's fortunate, I would say, actually, because I don't want to have to root against Kyle Pitts. It's not his fault that he was drafted by Arthur Smith to then be used as a decoy blocker for some reason, to basically be splitting targets and snaps and shares with Jonnu Smith. But this week, the only tight ends that were kind of outliers that outscored Kyle Pitts, because he did have a nice PPR week, Dalton Schultz, Sam Laporta, and Logan Thomas in the Thursday game. And then also in the same Thursday game in a half PPR league, Cole Kmet. So it's a short list this week. But, Kyle Pitts, if this is like the best that we're going to see, it's rough. It's rough in these streets. And Bijan Robinson, like, how is this man not getting 25 touches a game? It's infuriating watching Tyler Algier run 16 times for 2 yards in a cloud of dust. We're getting all these awesome overhead shots of Bijan Robinson, but then, his stat line at the end of the day just isn't that impressive. And unfortunately, if you drafted him in the first round, now the running back position has been just so abysmal that you're probably still okay with it for now. But, if you took the leap in redraft, and I know there were some outliers out there that took him over CMC, that was obviously really stupid. But, with guys breaking out late, the likes of David Montgomery and Devon Achane, the zero RB truthers are going to be taking many victory laps this year because the only surviving running back really from the first round that's crushing it is McCaffrey. Everyone else is having ups and downs, injuries, all kinds of stuff. Speaking of Devon Achane or Achane or however the fuck you say his last name, all I know is this man is fast and man, he's good. And it's funny because it's like I had been drafting so much of him for so long and then kind of backed off of it kind of preseason week 2 and week 3. So it was really late. I already had so many shares of him by that point, but in a couple of those later drafts, that's where I was doing some more, shallower redraft leagues. So I wasn't necessarily reaching on Achane, and especially because I already had so much of them. And at that point, it seemed like a muddled backfield where everyone was getting involved. Now, I did see on Twitter that he got his ankle rolled up on and he didn't play in the last part of the game because it was a blowout. They didn't need him. So just keep an eye on that. But man, he is just electric. Like he's a different type of cat out there. He's Tyreek Hill at the running back position. I said that in the preseason, in the offseason. It's why I was drafting him so much. And that's come to fruition. And the other one, Adam fucking Thielen just keeps getting it done. Garbage time touchdown. Who cares? This man is a target machine. And I said, draft Adam Thielen late. He's the third down guy. He's the red zone guy. And at this point, it doesn't matter if it's Bryce Young. It doesn't matter if it's Andy Dalton. Adam Thielen is the wide receiver 1 for this team. And as long as he's healthy, he's a wide receiver 2 on your fantasy squad. And he'll still be a little bit matchup dependent, but for the most part, it feels like he's kind of matchup proof because of the way that he's able to route run and beat zones. It's like his worst game is going to be a floor game of, 4 or 5 catches for maybe 50 yards. But now I don't think anyone expected him to come out and be crushing it the way he is. But man, I have so many Adam Thielen shares coming through right now, and it is just stellar. The Cowboys got slapped around by the 49ers. That was entertaining. This is more the Cowboys offense that I was worried about seeing. Now I get it. It's the 49ers defense. If you actually look at the box scores and for fantasy too, 49ers defense hasn't been like quite as vaunted as people say. Like they're beating up on bad quarterbacks and they're still like, they can still be had through the air. Their front 7 is really good. They're kind of like the Eagles that way, where if you are going to beat them, it's going to be like through the air, beating the corners. But the problem is you got to be able to get the ball out to those corners, trying to survive that front 7. Fred Warner playing like a man out of his mind right now. So, and then just when the defense isn't able to beat up on the other team in front run, Cowboys offense, this is kind of what I was worried about. And then the Jets offense was the same thing. Breece Hall did have the monster game. I would be trying to sell him. They've got the Eagles coming up and then the bye week. And yes, their schedule loosens up a little bit coming out of the bye week, but they're going to have to face the Bills again, who have a really good defense. Miami's defense is better than people think. They're going to have to face them. And they're going to have to face the Falcons. And the fact that they're sticking with Zach Wilson for the rest of the year, I just personally don't see it. Now, maybe Daddy Rogers with his weird recovery that he's talking about is able to come back somehow in this season, which would be absolutely insane. But I don't see it for the Jets offense. And Breece Hall would be the only valuable target piece worth holding on to. I was saying like sell Brees Hall, sell Garrett Wilson before this matchup, because if, God forbid, if this had turned into like a low scoring game where they didn't break out, you were going to struggle to sell them after. Now that Brees Hall's had the monster game, now I'm not saying, sell Brees Hall for just anything. If you're going to sell Brees Hall, you have to be pivoting sideways. I'd be looking to package and get into Josh Jacobs. I know Tony Pollard's coming off the bad game, but he was getting volume and he'll see better days. I would be looking to pivot into Tony Pollard. Derrick Henry, probably not. Bijan Robinson, that one's interesting. I feel like as electric as Bijan has been, the actual production hasn't quite been there. If you could somehow convince the Bijan manager to send him over for Brees Plus, I would do that. Again, that one's more unlikely. I feel like Josh Jacobs and Pollard are interesting prospective targets because they will see, better matchups and better days, I feel like. So, hey, we're flying through here. It's a jam-packed show. We're going to get into some hearts and farts, my version of studs and duds. And then the waivers have made their way back into the main show for this week because, peek behind the curtain into my real life. I'm getting married this week, going up to my hometown. So, yeah, it's going to be a very hectic week for me. So yeah, I'm just shoving everything I can into this show. I'm going to be recording one more show to do the weekly preview. My wild card Wednesdays are already pre-recorded, so that's coming out. The only thing on hiatus this week, which I'll just remind everyone once again, Sunday live stream will not be happening, unfortunately, this week, because I will be in a car on my way back home to Quebec. So no Sunday live stream this week, but we will be back next week with the Sunday live stream. And I think I'm going to keep doing them early in the morning. First of all, besides the fact that I'm just a morning person anyways, and I'm always up really early. And so, I'll be there for the other early morning risers like myself. I also just like being able to beat the punch to the other live streams because then I get to go watch the other live streams. I like participating in as many of the live streams as I can for other content creators because I know, how hard it is being a small content creator myself, but also just because, hey, these guys have valuable information to give and I'll pepper them with questions for my actual lineups. And a lot of times I'll ask the same question on different shows to kind of see the different responses. And sometimes it'll be something that someone says that ends up being the decider. So again, I've shouted him out several times on several shows. At Fantasy Blue Chip was the one that had convinced me to start Devon Achane for the breakout game, like the 200-yard game, like the crazy one that a lot of people didn't play him for. I played him in all my leagues for that game, basically, because of something that Jagger May had said, which was you don't want him to have that like monster crazy breakout game on your bench. I was like, yeah, no, I really don't. I really don't want that to happen. And so in pretty much every league, except for like some, shallower dynasty leagues where I forgot he was on my taxi squad, which was actually 3 separate leagues because I'm in like 19 leagues. That's something I'm struggling with. I think I'm gonna have to reduce the 19. Feels like some people manage like 7,500 leagues with like spreadsheets and shit. I could never do that in a million years. I'm at 19 and I am struggling. Like I feel like I have a couple important leagues where I haven't quite been giving it my full attention. My main home league, that's $1,000 grand prize. And if you come in last place, you're booted from the league for a year. So it's mass. It's like very big implications if you win, but it's also massive implications if you lose. And I'm not in last place or anything, but I'm not close to being anywhere in first right now. I just ate another L, and this is now 2 weeks that I've eaten the L because I left the points on my bench where I should have started. I could have started Jaleel McLaughlin and Josh Downs, but I ended up starting, and this was both in the 2 flex options for this league. And instead I went with Tank Dell and Marvin Mims. So obviously that didn't work out for me. Najee was still in my lineup. I had a couple other poopers in my lineup. So even though I had DJ Moore and Gabe Davis, I couldn't overcome, and I still lost that fucking matchup, and I'm very annoyed about it. But yeah, it's like a whole segue into, we're getting into the hearts and farts, like I said. So we'll start positive, try and cheer myself up a little bit. We'll start with the hearts. All right, so for quarterbacks, Justin Fields lit the world on fire on Thursday. And so if you were facing the Fields DJ Moore stack all week, that definitely didn't feel good. Brock Purdy, Purdy-licious, man. He crushed it. 4 touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys defense. Josh Allen, even in the loss, had a good fantasy game. Jared Goff, man. Jared Goff, his play has been so underrated this year. He has been tremendous for that team. And he's doing it with nobody. He's doing it with Josh Reynolds as his leading target right now. Like, Amon-Ra was out. Jahmyr Gibbs popped up on the injury report late. He was out. So it's like, it's David Montgomery, Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, and Sam Laporta. That's his like starting core, and he's crushing it right now. So shout out to the Detroit Lions. Their offensive line and just their scheme and play calling right now is on point. It's doing everything that a lot of these other teams aren't doing for their quarterbacks. It's not like Goff is like some crazy physical specimen or anything. Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, even Sam Howell and Desmond Ridder had good games. This was just a good week for quarterbacks. Tua, Kirk, Mahomes, Stafford, Russ, like they were all, had acceptable quarterback performances. On the running back side, it was exactly who you expected as the number 1 running back on the week with the return of Jonathan Taylor. Zach Moss. Zach Moss crushed it. I think, this is, and it's funny because people are making the joke and the reaction on Twitter of, they should have just paid Zach Moss and they gave Jonathan Taylor is still a very talented running back. And I think the fact that Zach Moss is succeeding in this offense is more of a good sign for Jonathan Taylor and just how much better even he could be potentially once he's fully right. Because I think that's clear that he actually was in fact injured and is still dealing with injuries and is not fully right, not fully himself. So, on the season though, the fact that Zach Moss crushed it, I think that's a good sign for Jonathan Taylor. So I would still be holding him. Travis Etienne, the demise of Etienne to Tank Bigsby was definitely overrated. And Tyjae Spears, I'll just skip ahead. He's going to pop up on this list. And it's like, just because Tyjae Spears had a good game doesn't mean that I would be looking to move on from Derrick Henry, nor do I think that this is indicative of Tyjae Spears taking over the role in any way, shape, or form. The fact is Derrick Henry's the best fucking quarterback on this team right now. And DeAndre Hopkins, if his toe gets in, Derrick Henry has his 2nd passing touchdown on the year, which would be almost as many as fucking Tannehill has. Breece Hall crushed. Devon Achane looked amazing again, but again, just keep an eye on those injury reports because he did get his ankle rolled up on it. It seemed like at the end of the game. David Montgomery is the new Jamal Williams, and now that Jahmyr Gibbs is dealing with an injury himself, it feels like it's David Montgomery full go every game now. Alvin Kamara, if you took the hit for the 3 weeks, he's now last week got it done with 13 PPR receptions. This week had an actually good game, got the touchdown, so that was good to see. Jaleel McLaughlin, the waiver wire hotness, he had a good game. DeAndre Swift continues to excel. Raheem Mostert is still good. Joe Mixon had a decent game. This is how good Christian McCaffrey is. Christian McCaffrey had 15 points, and that feels disappointing to fantasy managers. He's just been absolutely crushing it. And Isaiah Pacheco is the best running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he is actually the only other fantasy asset worth owning besides Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes right now. It's Isaiah Pacheco. And I do have a couple late shares of him, especially in some dynasty leagues where I was going 0 RB, because I did kind of perceive him as taking over the role because of how he excelled in the playoffs. For wide receivers, Jamar fucking Chase.
I'm open. I'm always fucking open. Excuse my profanity. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, he is always open to the tune of 3 touchdowns. You know who else had 3 touchdowns was DJ fucking Moore. And the weekly winners lineup that I had both of them. So, again, it's like, yeah, that one free league, I experimented and did a trade that I would never recommend to anyone else in a million years. Yeah, the reason I was okay with this is because in all my actual money leagues, I'm still very heavily invested in Chase. So Chase, DJ Moore, Tyreek, the Freak had another great week. That's a lot of rhymes. George Pickens, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, and Gabe Davis both had decent fantasy games, even though Diggs was pissed off that they lost. And it's funny, every time Diggs gets emotional and pissed off that they're losing a game that they should obviously be winning, they're like, oh, Josh Allen's done with Stephon Diggs. Like, look, just because Josh Allen doesn't have the same temperament doesn't mean that he doesn't feel internally the same way as Stephon Diggs, who outwardly expresses it in a way that is more emotionally volatile, but doesn't necessarily mean that Josh Allen's going to cast him off next week. He's an incredibly talented wide receiver. I think Josh Allen knows that. DeAndre Hopkins, he resurfaced, had a good game. Calvin Ridley, Puka Nacua. Hey, turns out he can survive with Cooper Kupp. Shout out to Matt Harmon, because I've been ripping him off for weeks now, saying that Puka Nacua fills the Robert Woods role and that it was more Tutu Atwell who was going to be relegated. We also saw Tyler Higbee. His role was definitely relegated. Atwell did manage to get into the end zone, but it was on 2 targets. He had I think he had the super sexy 1 yard, 1 touchdown stat line to finish the game. So he's not really going to be fantasy relevant. It's going to all go through Cooper and Puka for the most part. Those other guys might have a couple spike weeks here and there, but the only guys you can trust, Puka and Cooper. And then rounding out the list, AJ Brown, Jordan Addison, Josh Reynolds, Hollywood Brown, and Curtis Samuel. George Kittle had the monster George Kittle game. So, natural 3 weeks of nothingness and then monster game. Hey, helps my best ball mania team. That's why I took him in best ball leagues where I don't have to pick when to start him. Dallas Goedert had an unnaturally monster game. And it's funny because it's like Devonta Smith has kind of been relegated the last couple of weeks because of how much effort they're trying to get Dallas Goedert involved. So we'll see if that kind of flips, or if this is very much a situation where Jalen Hurts, as good as he is as a running quarterback, as a passer, is only really able to support 2 passing options. And so it could end up being that Goddard and Devonta Smith are flipping week to week, and or AJ Brown and Devonta are flipping week to week. So it could be an issue of there's only so many targets to go around, too many mouths to feed there. Travis Kelce, even though he had an injury, he played through and had a good game. Logan Thomas had a great game. Sam Laporta continues to establish himself as the dynasty tight end to own right now. Dalton Schultz popped up with a great game. Darren Waller resurfaced finally. Kyle Pitts had a decent game. And Cole Kmet from Thursday, he caught the only touchdown that DJ Moore did not catch. And then on defense, the top 5 defense, the Saints, The Steelers rebounded. The Bengals, which I should have had that in the I was wrong section because that was another bad call I made. I had Colts over the Bengals. Bengals got the touchdown. Colts didn't. Even though the Colts won the game and it was low scoring, Bengals were the start there. And then the Jets and the Niners defense helped definitely win those games. Jets had that weird touchdown that Russ fumbled, and the Niners just smashed the crap out of Dallas there. And now we get into the thoughts. Trevor Lawrence continues to be kind of mediocre for fantasy. It was under 20, but it didn't kill you. Same thing with CJ Stroud and Josh Dobbs. Dobbs was kind of flirting with the 15-ish line, but they were both kind of between 15 and 20, all three of them, sorry. So they didn't kill you, but it definitely wasn't good games, especially with how good the quarterbacks were this week. And then under 15, Lamar, Zach Wilson, Dak, and Danny Dimes just poop on a stick with how good the quarterbacks were this week. And then the one that sucked was Anthony Richardson got hurt again. And, shout out to Dr. Jesse Morse. He's part of the Fantasy Doctors. Make sure you follow him on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck you want to call it. I really like and trust his content, and it's being reported that it's potentially an AC joint sprain, so shoulder sprain for laymen out there like me who don't know what the fucking AC joint is. But yeah, he's got a bad shoulder sprain basically, and he could actually miss a couple weeks. So Minshew Mania is back again, baby. And then Mac Jones this might be the worst offense in NFL. And is threatening Bill Belichick's career right now. Tony Pollard for the running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs popped up with the hamstring, and so I don't think he even played. He was out, I think. James Conner got hurt. That fucking sucked. King Henry had a mid-game because he didn't get his passing touchdown. Going back to Thursday, Brian Robinson and all the Bears running backs got hurt. So if you tried to play one of them, you got screwed. Kyron Williams didn't have that great of a game. Ramondre and Zeke continue to struggle in that terrible Patriots offense. Najee fucking Harris, I've belabored the point enough. Matt Canada is killing this man.
Look how they massacred my boy.
James Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Jerick McKinnon, and Dalvin Cook is irrelevant right now. You can basically drop him, which is kind of crazy to say. For wide receivers, Chris Olave, even though he caught the touchdown, it was like his only catch basically, and he popped up where he was going to play through an ankle injury, and so I had said to pivot away if you had like a really good option to pivot to. So for example, if you had been able to pivot to an Adam Thielen, if you had been able to pivot to a George Pickens, a Gabe Davis, Puka Nacua, one of these guys, a Jordan Addison, even Curtis Samuel, like any of these guys not Curtis Samuel, you probably didn't see that one coming. But Addison, for example, was the one specifically I had recommended playing over him. So it is what it is. And I'm worried. I'm worried about Alvin Kamara's involvement. The volume there seems to be usurping from the wide receivers. And, any kind of thing, any kind of injury like this is also Olave's first touchdown on the year. So it's not like it's coming through mass touchdowns. It's not coming through big efficiency. It's normally coming through PPR volume. They are still trying to get him involved, which is good, but I just don't really trust Derek Carr in this offense right now. So I am actively trying to sell Chris Olave because he still has big time name value and potential down the road. And this is for redraft specifically, not dynasty. CeeDee Lamb, another mid-game because the whole offense just struggled against the Niners. Garrett Wilson didn't have that great of a game. Tutu Atwell, same thing. He had basically the same stat line as Olave. So with Atwell, such a deep play, you're probably not that disappointed that he at least got the touchdown, but it wasn't great. Going back to Thursday, Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, especially. Dotson is dropped. Like, he's not. Curtis Samuel's more involved. Like, Curtis Samuel's usurping whatever relevance Jahan Dotson could have. Justin Jefferson, that was the big one. Keep an eye on that. He popped up with the hamstring injury, did not come back into the game. That one is very scary. So all eyes on Justin Jefferson. Cortland Sutton and Devonta Smith just disappeared also. And Tank Dell and Nico Collins, they didn't really have great games. They will ebb and flow. As good as CJ Stroud is, he is a rookie. So hold those guys. Dell got hurt also, so I think that was part of it. But Nico is just going to have, big games, and then he's going to waver here and there. For tight end, Chig Okonkwo continues just to be irrelevant. Evan Ingram, I think it was like 4 for 28 or something. It was one of the low games. He's still heavily involved in targets, though. So for tight ends, he's definitely a hold. Jake Ferguson, Tyler Higbee, Dalton Kincaid, the rookie non-sensation. I think Dalton Kincaid truthers were expecting Sam Laporta type performances, but Laporta has outplayed him severely. And I was drafting Laporta way more than I was drafting Kincaid by virtue of, I just kind of assumed that Laporta was going to be more forcibly involved in the offense, but also because the draft capital was better. And if I was going to take my shot on a rookie, it's like, give me the one that's a little bit later. And then if you did try to play Hunter Henry, because he has been a bit of a tight end darling this year, he goosed. Because it's just the Patriots, the nature of the Patriots right now. So you might have to pivot away from Hunter Henry. And then for defense, again, going back to Thursday, if you tried to play the Commanders, that sucked. The Patriots, that was gross. New Orleans offense hasn't been the greatest, so some people may have been still trying to play the Patriots. Cowboys got shellacked. So if you left that defense in hoping that they would just perform, they did not. The Colts, this was my bad call I mentioned earlier. They won the game 23-16. So they only allowed 16 points, but yet they only had 5 fantasy points. So you definitely should have started the Bengals. And then the Ravens. The Ravens lost to the fucking Steelers, and the defense, even though they only allowed 17 points, like, it just wasn't that great for fantasy. So it just kind of sucked. So we'll actually crush in some waivers here, and then we'll wrap things up.
Who in the blue hell are you?
All right, so for waivers, Desmond Ridder, hilariously enough, is going to be a top waiver ad, especially if you need a streaming option. He's going to be at home against the Washington Manders. We've seen them get diced up. Bryce Young is also going to be an option. He's going to be at Miami, so they're going to have to throw. And the other one that's going to be really popular, I feel like, is Minshew Mania with the Jacksonville revenge game going at Jacksonville. For running backs, it is gross. It is rough in these streets. Amari DeMarcado, 24-year-old undrafted rookie for the Cardinals, probably going to be the top waiver ad. Do not blow your budget. I would spend maybe 10. I've said this before. When you're making waiver claims, please never put in $10. And don't even put in 11, because everyone, that's like the guy that does the $1 Bob thing. Like, everybody knows that trick. So usually if I'm going to bid $11, put 12 or 13. Just to kind of, you're not going to be crying because a $13 bid went in over a $9 bid. Like, it doesn't matter. The only time it would matter is if there were no other bids. Samaje Perine is one, just to kind of check for, because he hit a lot of waiver wires, so he could be out there. And then honestly, the rest of them, like Matt Breida and Eric Gray for New York, I'm just avoiding. The schedule is brutal for them. I'm avoiding Craig Reynolds. This is David Montgomery's backfield. Even if Jahmyr Gibbs is hurt, Reynolds, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And Jordan Mason, it's like if CMC's hurt or they shellac a team like they did the Cowboys and they pull all their starters with time left in the fourth quarter, then yeah, Jordan Mason is relevant. Otherwise, he's not. Wide receivers is where there's actually some action this week. Curtis Samuel is going to be the big one. He is actively involved in the Washington Commanders scheme. He's usurped the role that people were hoping for Jahan Dotson. He's involved in every aspect of the game because they still involve him on those weird jet sweeps and weird rushes out of the backfield. So Curtis Samuel is definitely someone you can flex. KJ Osborne is going to be another big one with the unfortunate Justin Jefferson hamstring injury. Make sure you are adding KJ Osborne. That's going to be my number one priority because it's going to be him and Jordan Addison as the two primary wide receivers. And he'll be the third option behind Addison and Hawkinson. Visca Chenault got all carries. If they're trying to convert him to a running back, that actually might be interesting. And so he's a hold right now. Rashid Shaheed, the schedule should loosen up. If Olave struggles at all with the ankle, he's worth a stash. Jonathan Mingo came back to action and saw some decent targets. He's worth a hold. Rondale Moore also kind of being used in that Curtis Samuel role for the Cardinals. He's being used in the run and still kind of on screen passes and that kind of stuff. So he's in deeper leagues, worth a stash. And very deep league stash also, Darius Slayton is still seeing the most snap percentage targets for Giants wide receivers, but it's gross. Tight end, Dalton Schultz is basically, it's Dalton Schultz and Tyler Conklin. And I'm not falling for Adam Troutman. He hasn't done shit since week 1. And we saw basically the same thing. It's like he'll get 4 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. And then the other weeks he gets sweet fuck all. So I'm not falling for that. And then on defense, I would be looking to stash the Raiders. That's a sneaky stash that you might even be able to throw on, depending on league format, if you have someone on bye who kind of sucks, or if you just have someone who played that you're just kind of sick of and you want to drop, and your league allows you to drop a player that's already played if they're on your bench. Go and stash the Raiders. They have a home game next week against the Patriots. McDaniels might, be looking for a bit of a revenge game there with how bad the Patriots offense has looked. You could do worse. So I'd be looking at them for a streamer. The Rams will be playing the Cardinals. And if James Conner's knee injury is serious in any way, shape, or form, then it keeps him out for that week. With no James Conner, who's really the engine for that offense, I think the Rams could end up slacking the Cardinals, especially if Aaron Donald kind of has a crazy game. So I would be looking to stream the Rams there. And Miami, the defense, everyone's paying attention to the offense because the offense is so good. But because the offense is boat racing teams, it forces those teams to have to pass a lot. And they're getting caught up in Miami's defense because Miami actually has a pretty good defense. And next week they get Carolina. So I like Miami defense. And hey, kickers are people too. Blake Grupe for New Orleans. Chris Boswell, he's going into the bye week, but then coming out of the bye week, this man needs to be owned. If not for how good he has been as a fantasy kicker, just for standing up to Matt fucking Canada for ruining our goddamn offense. This man, just side note, Matt Canada should be fired just for not reacting to the game-winning touchdown that his quarterback threw. And word on the streets is it's because Pickett called an audible on that play and, threw the game-winning touchdown on essentially not Matt Canada's play call. And that's why he was all bumhurt up in the booth. So fuck Matt Canada. Sick of this man. I'm sure in real life he is a great human being, and I don't wish him any kind of harm or any kind of stupid shit like that. But as far as offensive coordinator for my Pittsburgh Steelers, get him the fuck out. And then quickly back to the kickers here. Kaimi Fairbairn is literally one of the best fantasy kickers, and he's still on way too many waiver claim lists. So if you have a kicker that's struggling, and I'll give you one, Justin Tucker has not been very good for fantasy because the Ravens have not been a very good offense. I don't want to drop Justin Tucker, but frankly, you could drop Justin Tucker for Kaimi Fairbairn this year. I think Fairbairn is a lock to finish ahead of Tucker. He already is way ahead of him at this point, but like the Ravens offense is going to have a complete turnaround for Justin Tucker to continue to have relevancy. If you have any of these other kickers on decent teams that are kind of struggling or whatever, though, man, Kaimi Fairbairn, like I said, he should be owned in every single league that has kickers. So shout out to that man. The list of Joker has been updated. This is the end of the show. We're cutting it early because I'm going to have to record another episode today. I'm actually recording 2 more episodes today. I'm going to do Thursday Thriller. I'm going to pre-record the full week preview, get everyone set up for the week in my absence. And then I'm also doing a wild card Wednesday tonight. Shout out to Ronnie Evans. Make sure you go follow him on Twitter. Super kick that sub button. Drop an elbow on that bell so that you get notified for future episodes. As always, I will catch you guys on the flip side. And here is the updated list of Joker. These are, X accounts, Twitter accounts that you should be following. This is where I get a lot of my fantasy football information, where I get a lot of my entertainment and comedy. I definitely prioritize the comedy entertainment side of it, but a lot of these two are just straight analytical accounts because I aggregate the information in my head and then it kind of coagulates, mixes with my own theories on football and my own purviews of team situations. You know, I look for people I disagree with, and I always say one of my pieces of advice just in life in general is surround yourself with people smarter than you. These are all people smarter than me when it comes to fantasy football and when it comes to content creation. So shout out to every single person on this list. And again, thank you, the listener, for following along, and thank you for checking us out. Catch you guys again on the flip side.
You just made the list! You just made the list! Oh my God. You just made the list! Just made the list! Those stupid soccer mom's hair! You just made the list!
Now, she's reporting her neighbor, who's ex-Catholic by her demand, and Larry's supposed to talk to. Well, she doesn't know what to do. She says we shop for him for Colleyville. Says she hates me ever since I arrived. Says I'm not allowed to go unheard. We got to a beach challenging in court. That I will not be an occupant of an assembly hall in her state. They're there to say that she's having fun. Not with yet this policy. That's Liver says she just moved in. And that she just, she don't want the challenge. Here we go. She plays with Pittsburgh Steelers. She wants no Bowling Green, Ohio. That's bad luck, but she wants someone else. Here we go. Here we go.